All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time we're all about the art of persuasion, how to win people over to your way of thinking.
Ooh, sounds
It
interesting.
is, trust me. We're going to be looking at excerpts from this book on influencing people.
Okay.
And it's got some really insightful stuff you can actually use in everyday life.
Mm.
Like surprising strategies.
Like what?
Things like using someone's resistance to your advantage, or like the power of making people feel good about their own opinions.
Yeah.
Confirming their self-opinion.
Oh, that's
It
interesting.
is. Even subtly influencing people just with your mood.
Wow. That's a lot to unpack.
It is. So to help us break down all the psychology behind this, we've got our expert here.
Hey.
So where do we even begin with all this? Like, what's the first big idea we should dive into?
Well, the book jumps right in with this concept called the law of defensiveness. It's basically the idea that, we as humans, we just naturally resist being persuaded or told what to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, think about it. How do you feel when someone's, like, really pushing their opinions on you?
Oh, not good. Not good at all.
Right. It doesn't feel great, does it?
No, it feels kind of like a personal attack almost.
Yeah, exactly. Like, even if the other person doesn't mean it that way,
Right.
it's like this deep down need we all have, that need to feel like we're in control of our own choices.
Hmm.
And when someone tries to force their views on us, it makes us feel like that control is being threatened.
So we get defensive.
Exactly. Our defenses just go up. It's natural.
That's interesting.
So what's fascinating is that, like, the best persuaders, the real masters, they actually use this law to their advantage.
Really.
They don't fight that resistance. They work with it. Instead of trying to, like, force people, they make people feel like they're the ones choosing.
Oh, so it's less about dictating and more about guiding.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
that makes a lot of sense. But how do they do that?
Well, that's where the book gets even more interesting. It dives into these things called the three universal qualities of self-opinion.
Oh.
Basically, it's this idea that everyone deep down believes these three things about themselves. One, that they're autonomous, they make their own choices.
Mm.
Two, that they're intelligent in their own way, of course. And three, that they're a good person.
Okay, yeah. Those are pretty fundamental beliefs.
Right.
I can definitely see how those would be important if you're trying to persuade someone.
Absolutely. These qualities, they're like the foundation of someone's self-image.
Hmm.
So by, confirming these beliefs, by validating them, you're essentially lowering their defenses and making them way more open to what you have to say.
So it's like you're making them feel good about themselves while also subtly steering them towards your point of view.
Exactly.
That's clever. It's almost like a Jedi mind trick or something.
Uh-huh. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
But without the force.
Right, of course. So this is all very insightful, but I'm curious about how it works in practice. Does the book get into that?
Absolutely. It lays out 5 specific strategies to become like a master persuader. Are you ready for this?
Oh, yeah, bring it on.
Okay, so here they are. Becoming a deep listener.
Okay.
Infecting people with the proper mood.
Okay, we'll have to unpack that one.
Free will, it sounds a little crazy, I know. But trust me. Then we've got confirming their self-opinion, which we kind of touched on. Then there's allying with their insecurities. And lastly, using people's resistance to your advantage.
Wow, there's a lot there. Okay, so the first one is about becoming a deep listener. Now, I think I'm a pretty good listener already, but I have a feeling this book is going to take it to a whole new level.
You're probably right. You see, most people, they're so focused on what they're going to say next that they don't truly listen. But this book, it talks about the power of actually seeing the world through the other person's eyes, really trying to understand their perspective.
Okay.
It's like each person is an undiscovered country full of all these surprises and, uncharted territory.
I love that. So it's not just about listening to respond. It's about listening to truly understand.
Exactly. It's about making that shift in your mind. Really pay attention. What's their tone like? What about their body language? What makes their eyes light up? And then guide the conversation in that direction. You can even use techniques like mirroring, where you subtly reflect their words and movements.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But what about this whole infecting people with the proper mood thing? That sounds kind of manipulative, doesn't it?
I can see why you'd say that. But it's actually based on this real psychological phenomenon called emotional contagion. Basically, our moods, they can actually be contagious. We subtly influence the emotions of those around us.
Wait, really? So if I'm in a good mood, it can actually rub off on other people?
Yep. And the book suggests using this to your advantage, like cultivating a mood of indulgence and non-judgment. making people feel safe and open to your suggestions. It's less about, like, tricking someone into feeling a certain way and more about setting the right tone for the interaction.
Ah, so it's more about creating a positive atmosphere,
Hmm.
not forcing anything on anyone.
Precisely. And, laughter, having fun together, those are great ways to, build rapport and lower defenses.
Yeah, when you're laughing and having a good time with someone, you naturally feel more connected.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got deep listening and mood contagion. What about this third one, confirming their self-opinion? We talked about those three universal qualities, but how do you put that into practice?
It's all about recognizing and validating those beliefs. Like, let's say you want to appeal to someone's sense of autonomy. So instead of saying, you have to do this, you could say something like, what do you think about this? Would this be something you'd be interested in?
Oh, so it's all about framing things in a way that makes them feel in control. Like they're making the decision on their own terms.
Exact.
Okay, that's brilliant.
Huh.
Now, confirming their intelligence, that seems a bit trickier.
It's all about showing genuine respect,
Yeah.
like asking for their advice, acknowledging their expertise, maybe even letting them, win an argument now and then.
Okay.
But of course, this all has to be sincere. People can spot a phony from a mile away.
Right, yeah. It can't just be some manipulative tactic. It has to be authentic.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what about confirming their sense of being a good person?
You can appeal to their better nature, to their altruism, like, maybe frame your request as something that benefits others or something that aligns with their values. You can even praise them for good things they've done in the past. Or you could apologize if you've, offended them in some way.
Interesting.
Yeah, it subtly positions them as, morally superior, which can be quite effective.
Wow, there's so much more to this persuasion thing than I ever realized.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've got deep listening, setting the right mood, confirming their self-opinion. But you said there were two more, right? I'm dying to hear what those are.
All right, so we've still got those last two strategies. Allying with their insecurities and using their resistance.
Okay.
I know these might sound a little counterintuitive, maybe even a bit ethically questionable,
Yeah, maybe a little.
but stick with me. When you use these skillfully and with good intentions, they can be really effective.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but yeah, a little apprehensive.
I get it.
Let's start with allying with their insecurities. I have to admit, that one makes me a bit uncomfortable. It almost sounds like taking advantage of people's weaknesses.
Yeah, I understand. We're not talking about manipulating people or preying on their vulnerabilities.
Okay, good.
It's more about trying to understand, what makes someone tick, what they might be sensitive about, and using that knowledge to connect with them on a deeper level.
So it's more about empathy, like really understanding them.
Exactly. The key is to figure out what their insecurities are without making them feel like exposed or attacked.
Yeah.
It takes careful observation and a genuine understanding of their personality.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see how this could be used for good.
Yeah.
So let's say you've figured out what someone's insecurities are. What's the next step?
Well, the book suggests offering praise and flattery that targets those specific areas.
Okay.
So, for example, someone's insecure about their public speaking skills.
Mm-hmm.
You might compliment them on how clear and engaging their presentation style was after they give a talk.
Oh, so it's like you're giving them this confidence boost, but in the area where they need it most.
Exactly. But here's the thing, the flattery has to be genuine.
Yeah.
People can always tell if you're being fake, and that can really backfire.
Right. It can't just be some empty compliment.
Exactly.
It has to be real.
And another good tip from the book is to praise their effort over their talent,
Oh, okay.
because that reinforces the idea that they achieved something through hard work,
Yeah.
which can be a lot more empowering than just saying they're naturally gifted.
Yeah, that's a good point. Kind of shifts the focus from something they might feel insecure about, like their lack of talent, to something they can control, their effort.
Right. Okay, so we've covered deep listening, mood contagion, confirming self-opinion, and allying with their insecurities.
Mm-hmm.
Now for the grand finale, using people's resistance. This is where that reverse psychology comes in.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was wondering about that. So instead of battling their resistance head on, we redirect it.
Exactly.
I like that. It's like a mental judo or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect analogy. So imagine someone's like totally against an idea that you're proposing.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of arguing, you could say something like, you know what? I totally get why you feel that way. That's a valid concern.
Oh, so you're acknowledging their resistance without like directly challenging it.
Exactly. It takes the wind out of their sails and makes them more open to hearing what you have to say.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty clever. It almost disarms them, doesn't it?
Right. Another good technique is to use their language back to them.
Oh, that.
If they're using really strong language, you kind of mirror it back in a way that shows you get where they're coming from.
So it's like you're on their side, you understand them.
Right. It creates this sense of familiarity and, like, agreement.
Okay, yeah, I see.
But what about those people who are just plain stubborn?
Yeah, I've definitely met a few of those.
Sometimes the best way to deal with stubborn people is to not engage with their stubbornness at all.
Oh, really?
Try a little reverse psychology. Agree with their, like, rebellious stance.
Wait, so if someone's like digging in their heels about something,
Yeah.
we should just agree and say, you're right, stick to your guns.
Sometimes. It sounds crazy, but it can make them rethink their position. It's
Yeah.
like you're using their own stubbornness against them.
Wow, these strategies they're really something. They make you think. But you know what? All this focus on persuading others. What about our own mindset? Is there a danger in like becoming too manipulative?
That's a great point. And the book actually talks about that, about the importance of having a flexible mind.
Oh, okay. So it's not just about influencing others. It's about being open to being influenced ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. It's easy to get stuck in our ways, to hold on to our opinions too tightly. But a truly persuasive person, they're also open to new ideas. They're willing to change their mind.
Yeah, I like that. The book even compares opinions to toys.
Yeah.
You keep some, you get rid of some, but you maintain a sense of playfulness,
Right. It's a great way to think about it. It's about not taking yourself too seriously,
Hmm.
admitting when you're wrong, and embracing the fact that we're all constantly learning and growing.
So being a master persuader is also about being a master learner.
Absolutely. And that leads us to this other important skill the book talks about, learning to find truth, or at least value in opposing viewpoints.
Oh, okay. That could be hard, especially when you feel really strongly about something.
Hey, no, but it's important. It's part of keeping that flexible mindset.
Yeah, it makes sense. So how do you actually do that? Like, how do you find that common ground when you just completely disagree with someone?
Well, it all starts with empathy. Really trying to see where they're coming from, even if you don't agree with their conclusions. Look for those underlying values or experiences that might be shaping their view.
So it's not about agreeing, it's about understanding why they believe what they believe.
Exactly. And you know what? More often than not, when we take the time to look a little deeper, we realize we actually have more in common than we thought.
Yeah, that's true. But sometimes my own like self-perception gets in the way. I'm so convinced I'm right that I can't even consider another perspective.
I think we all struggle with that sometimes. And that's where this idea of ironic distance comes in.
Okay, ironic distance. I'm not familiar with that one. What is that?
It's the ability to step back from our own self-opinion and view it with a bit of humor and detachment. Recognizing that we all have biases and blind spots, and that our self-perception, well, isn't always accurate.
So it's about not taking yourself too seriously and acknowledging that you're a work in progress.
Exactly.
I like that.
It's a powerful way to be more humble and open-minded.
Which, as we've been talking about today, are really important if you want to be persuasive.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered so much in this deep dive, from the law of defensiveness to mental judo to ironic distance. What does it all mean? Like, what's the big takeaway for our listeners?
Well, after all that, I think the most important thing is that persuasion, real persuasion, it's not about tricks or manipulation.
Right.
It's about, like, tapping into human psychology, making real connections with people, building that rapport.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that everyone, even ourselves, we've all got insecurities, desires, things that motivate us, and all that shapes how we see the world and make decisions.
So it's less about making people do what we want and more about creating this space where they feel heard and respected.
Oh, right. Like they can make their own choices.
Exactly.
And remember, this is a skill. It takes time. You've got to practice, keep learning.
Right. It's like anything, the more you understand it, the better you'll get at it.
Exactly.
It reminds me of that quote from the book, that Oscar Wilde quote. There was something terribly enthralling in the exercise of influence, to project one's soul into some gracious form and let it tarry there for a moment.
Oh, that's a good one.
It really captures the power of connection, of really understanding someone if you want to persuade them.
Yeah, and that's a great point to end on, I think. Mastering persuasion, it's not about using some slick tricks. It's about genuinely connecting with others, understanding their perspective.
Finding that common ground.
Exactly.
So to our listeners out there, remember to approach your interactions with empathy. Be curious and keep an open mind.
And who knows, maybe you'll become a master persuader without even realizing it.
That's all for this deep dive into the art of persuasion. Thanks for listening, and hopefully you learned a thing or two. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those minds flexible.